Kashimo is easily one of the most disrespected and hated on characters within the Jujutsu Kaisen community, and honestly, I don't understand it. How can a character go from being so cool, so hype, to being the absolute most despised character within the entire community? And it pains me to see all the hate for Kashimo because Kashimo is genuinely my favorite character throughout the entire series, just because of how cool he is. And all the hate Kashimo gets is so undeserved. So let's just talk about how underrated and how goated Kashimo really is within Jujutsu Kaisen. Let's first go over the main reason why Kashimo gets so much hate. And honestly, it's the dumbest thing I have ever heard. The reason why Kashimo gets hated on and clowned on so much is because he got no diffed by Sukuna. That's right, by Sukuna. The strongest character in the entire series. Kashimo for some reason gets clowned on because he got defeated by the absolute strongest. It makes no sense. And what people will say is something like, "Oh, but Kashimo was talking about fighting Sukuna for so long, and this is how he performed." Yes, Kashimo wanted to fight Sukuna, but he never claimed that he will beat Sukuna. He simply wanted to fight him. How can you hate a character for losing to the strongest character in the verse? It doesn't make sense. What made Kashimo's performance feel disappointing is because it was coming right after Gojo's performance, where Gojo nearly defeated Sukuna. So a lot of people expected Kashimo to somehow outperform or perform just as well as Gojo did, which was never a possibility from the start because nobody has as broken of a hacks as Gojo does, which is what allowed him to perform so well against Sukuna. But instead of using Kashimo's performance to clown on Kashimo, it instead should be used to just praise him. No other character within the series was going to survive as long as Kashimo did in a one-on-one fight against Sukuna. You guys need to understand that Kashimo was tanking attacks and reacting to high-end era Sukuna in a one-on-one situation. No other character in the series has been doing that so far. We saw Yuta parry one attack in the latest chapter, but we all know that he's gonna have help against Sukuna. Kiguruma had help against Sukuna. Yuji has had help against Sukuna. The only characters that have gone one-on-one with Sukuna are Gojo, who is obviously stronger than Kashimo, and Kashimo himself. So why are we using Kashimo's performance to downplay him? Any other character would not have survived as long as Kashimo did, or would have been embarrassed just as bad. And also, I just need to stress how impressive it is that Kashimo was reacting and tanking Sukuna's attacks on multiple occasions. Those by themselves are already crazy feats. So again, Kashimo's performance against Sukuna only just solidifies how strong he is as a character. The fact that he was able to survive more than a chapter against high-end era Sukuna is ridiculous. A lot of people also like to bring up his performance against Hakari. People are like, "Oh, Kashimo's the strongest sorcerer of his era, but he lost to a high schooler." My friends, if you genuinely believe that, please go and reread the fight between Hakari and Kashimo, because Hakari had to rely on his jackpot ability to just survive against base Kashimo. This wasn't Kashimo that was going all out. This was a Kashimo that was holding back his curse technique. He could have been stronger, he could have been faster, but he chose not to be. And he still nearly killed Hakari on 3 separate occasions. And Hakari simply lucked out in that fight. To further prove how badly he could have humiliated Hakari, Kashimo figured out how Hakari's jackpot works. Think about that. He knows that Hakari is only immortal for 4 minutes. He could have simply evaded Hakari throughout the entirety of the fight, or throughout the entirety of the 4 minutes his jackpot was active. But what did he do? He was like, "No, that's how losers think. I'm gonna try to kill Hakari either way, knowing that he's immortal while he is immortal. That is the difference between Kashimo and these other characters. Kashimo literally stands on business. He is the definition of standing on business. Instead of running away, even while he knew he was at a disadvantage, he attacked Hakari head on. And that is what makes Kashimo my favorite character. Now, what's even more impressive about Kashimo is that Kashimo does not have a domain expansion, nor does he have reverse curse technique. Or at least he hasn't displayed that he has reverse curse technique. Yet, even while not having a domain expansion, he has a counter to domain expansions, that being Hollow Wicker Basket. Hollow Wicker Basket is said to literally negate the effect of domains, and the only reason, again, that it didn't work on Hakari's domain is because Hakari's domain doesn't really have a sure hit effect. Other than that, Kashimo is able to negate practically any other domain with Hollow Wicker Basket, despite not having a domain of his own. So Kashimo is hanging out with the top tiers in Jujutsu Kaisen while not having reverse curse technique and while not having a domain expansion. That's, again, an insanely impressive thing. Imagine being a top tier character without the two strongest abilities in the series. Now, we all know that Kashimo was stated time and time again and implied heavily to be the strongest sorcerer of his era. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, Kashimo's era is filled with farmers. Everybody was super, super weak during Kashimo's era. That's not true. That's actually so far from the truth. Because if you recall, back during the Shibuya incident, we learned that during the Edo period, a limitless user with the 6 eyes, just like Gojo, fought against a 10 shadows user. Those two sorcerers existed within the Edo period. Now, Kashimo is from 400 years ago. He's a sorcerer from 400 years ago. Keep that in mind. And what era was it in Japan 400 years ago? That's right, it was the Edo period. That means Kashimo was the strongest of his generation while still being matched up against a limitless and 6 eyes user and a 10 shadows user. And again, Kashimo was the strongest amongst them. So how was Kashimo's era farmers if those two existed during his era as well? Also, we literally know that Ryu exists in Kashimo's era, another very, very powerful sorcerer who Yuta had a pretty tough time defeating. Now, granted, you can argue Yuta was holding back, but either way, Ryu was stated to have the highest cursed energy output within the entire Colin games, which compared to characters like Yuta is ridiculously impressive. And again, from Kashimo's era. So there is literally no way you could say that Kashimo's era was filled with farmers when it had a limitless 6 eyes user, a 10 shadow user, and Ryu in his era. Also, another thing I just forgot to mention about the Hakari fight that came to mind. Hakari himself admitted that it doesn't feel like he won the fight because Kashimo didn't go all out. So before people say, oh, but Kashimo still lost, Hakari himself admits that it wasn't a win on his end. So you have that as well. Again, the Kashimo disrespect really needs to stop. He ran ones with Sukuna, knowing full well that he most likely wouldn't have made it out alive. He boxed up Hakari and nearly killed him on 3 separate occasions while being in base form. He was the strongest of his own era, an era that had a limitless 6 eyes user and a 10 shadow user, and he was still the strongest. Kashimo is him. I don't care what anyone says. The Kashimo disrespect is not warranted. It makes no sense. Kashimo is still a top tier character within the verse. But anyways, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and make sure to like and subscribe. And let me know what other videos you guys want to see in the future. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.